Children who needs to make their American dream come true.
Excellent. Our Kennedy.
Last night, L'Oreal hosted its Women of Worth event, honoring 10 incredible women who are using their inner beauty to make the world a better place. I gave an award to that woman, Genevieve Chase, who is an Afghanistan vet. She's an Army reservist, and she was blown up. Essentially, her truck was rammed by a car packed with explosives. She started American Women Veterans, and they focus on women's issues and helping those with PTSD and other areas.
All right. Special report up next with Brett Baer.
Jesse, tell Greg that Captain Kangaroo started with animals are great. The arrest of a top executive at a Chinese telecom company sends Wall Street reeling and could have major implications on a U.S.-China trade deal. Plus, how Republican lawmakers in one state are trying to take away a lot of power from the incoming Democratic governor. This is Special Report. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. We begin tonight with a new Attorney General nominee, possibly, and most definitely one of the wildest rides in a long time on the Wall Street roller coaster. The arrest of a top Chinese tech executive in Canada could provide yet another stumbling block to settling trade differences between the U.S. and the world's most populous country. The arrest and trade uncertainty sent markets into another tailspin today. The Dow was down 780 points before a fierce late-day rebound to finish off just 79. The S&P 500 lost 4. The Nasdaq gained 30. First, back to the future. In the Attorney General search, we now know who President Trump is considering as his next chief of law enforcement. And it's a man who has done that job before. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is here to tell us who that is from the North Lawn. Good evening, John.
Brett, good evening to you. For the past several weeks, President Trump seemed in no hurry to replace Jeff Sessions permanently, even though he had all that criticism about the interim Attorney General, Matt Whitaker. But suddenly this afternoon, word that the president had settled on a candidate, one who has enjoyed broad bipartisan support.
Sources tell Fox News that President Trump wants William Barr to be his next Attorney General. If nominated, it will be a second tour of duty for Barr. He served as Attorney General during the George H.W. Bush administration. A whiz kid from Columbia University and George Washington University Law School, Barr was just 42 when he first became Attorney General. While President Trump doesn't know Barr, they do have one thing in common. Barr fully supported the president's decision to fire FBI Director James Comey last year.
The president is entitled to his choice as FBI director. And while I admire Jim Comey a lot, I think he's contributed a lot to the country. He's enormously gifted. He crossed the basic line back in July, a fundamental line in the department.
As the president looks set to give Barr a thumbs up, the stock market turned thumbs down today on the U.S.-China trade relationship. The reason for the swoon this time? The arrest Saturday of Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou. Huawei is China's largest telecom company and America's chief competitor for new 5G systems that will revolutionize everything from cell phones to self-driving cars to robotic surgery. At the request of the United States, Meng was arrested by Canadian authorities in Vancouver. The DOJ has been investigating Huawei's possible violation of Iran sanctions and wants to extradite Meng. China is protesting loudly.
China demands them to immediately clarify the reason for the arrest, release the detainee, and safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of the detainee.
The arrest was made on the same day President Trump was having dinner with Chinese President Xi Jinping in an attempt to move U.S.-Chinese trade relations forward. The White House says President Trump did not know about the arrest before his meeting with Xi. National Security Advisor John Bolton on NPR today.
Well, you know, there are a lot of things that are pending at any given time. You don't know exactly what's going to happen in terms of a particular law enforcement action.
Bolton added that Huawei has long been suspected of involvement in intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer on behalf of the Chinese government.
I think this is going to be a major subject of the negotiations that President Trump and President Xi Jinping agreed on in Buenos Aires.
Huawei has been attempting to dominate the global 5G infrastructure, but fearing everything from intellectual property theft to outright espionage. Some countries, including New Zealand, Australia, and Britain, are either eliminating or limiting their use of Huawei products. No word yet on whether Meng's arrest is going to have any impact on the pending U.S.-China trade talks. Brett?
John Roberts live on the North Lawn. John, thanks. Let's look deeper at some of the reasons for what's happening on Wall Street. Susan Lee of the Fox Business Network joins us from New York. Good evening, Susan.
Good evening, Brett. It seems that investors will need to get used to these highly volatile days. We were tracking for another big stock market loss on the fragility of the U.S.-China trade truce after the Huawei arrest in Canada. But then just after 3 p.m., the Wall Street Journal reported that the Federal Reserve may be slowing down rate hikes next year, and that's when things started turning around into the close. Big technology names led the recovery today. Gains at the end for Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, and Google, and that's encouraging to some investors who say we may be at a near-term bottom. Trading volumes were a third higher today than the 1-month average, which suggests investors were buying on conviction, suggesting the losses may have stabilized. But it's already been a tough week for holders of U.S. stocks. Tuesday's 800-point loss was the fourth largest in the Dow's history, with all of the top 4 losses taking place this year. Plunging oil prices continue to be a drag Thursday, with the global oil cartel OPEC unsure of a production cut. And investors were still closely watching the rates on U.S. Treasury notes, worried of a complex but extremely important anomaly called a yield curve inversion. And that's when the rate of the 10-year Treasury bond falls below the 2-year, and that suggests a pessimistic outlook for future growth. A yield curve inversion has preceded nearly every recession since the 1960s, including 2008. And we also had GM's CEO Mary Barra continuing her discussions on Capitol Hill, explaining the company's decision to cut nearly 12,000 American jobs.
General Motors is an American company. That means they should hire American workers. And whenever there is an opportunity to move production from SUVs and others that are being made in Mexico, that production needs to come back to the United States.
Now, GM has said that they will try to shift those affected by the job cuts to other plants across the country. Brett?
Susan, thanks. Speaking of Capitol Hill, the Senate is once again tonight putting the squeeze on President Trump over the suspected involvement of Saudi Arabia's crown prince in the death of a Saudi journalist. This comes as congressional leaders continue efforts to try to reach a budget agreement ahead of a looming partial government shutdown. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Pressure's building on President Trump to take action against Saudi Arabia for the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and it's coming from both sides of the aisle.
This is an open and shut case, it seems, just given what's said publicly. You'd have to willfully be wanting to ignore evidence out there to not know that he was involved.
Illinois Democrat Senator Dick Durbin says the Saudis must pay a price. We should formally expel the Saudi ambassador to the United States, given the Crown Prince's direct involvement in the kidnapping and murder of Jamal Khashoggi. The retiring Senate Foreign Relations chairman says the U.S. should be tough. After all, the Saudis need us.
We've got this out of kilter. Their relationship to us is far more important than our relationship to them. We know that. And yet, everybody's getting this all turned around.
On government funding and the fight over the border wall, Congress just kicked the can 2 more weeks to December 21st. So that battle should come right before Christmas.
We made a lot of progress on 75% of the appropriations. I'd like to conclude it. We've got maybe 2 more weeks, and let's go from there.
Today, the House Democratic leader said she's not willing to consider a DACA deal for some border wall funding. Nancy Pelosi still trying to secure enough votes to be the next speaker, so she's taken a hard line.
Most of us, speaking for myself, consider the wall immoral, ineffective, inexpensive. That isn't how I would interpret a congressional continuing resolution.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says President Trump is just trying to fire up his base.
So if President Trump wants to throw a temper tantrum and shut down the government over Christmas, over the wall, that's his decision.
That sets the stage for a meeting between President Trump, Schumer, and Pelosi next Tuesday. This issue of border security, Homeland Security funding is expected to be front and center. Brett?
Mike Emanuel live on the Hill. Mike, thanks. Federal prosecutors say they will not pursue another trial against a Border Patrol agent who fatally shot a Mexican teenager across a border fence. Lonnie Swartz has been acquitted of second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter, but both times juries deadlocked on lesser charges. Swartz's attorney says the agent was acting in self-defense and following Border Patrol policy when he fired at least 16 shots at the boy who was throwing rocks at law enforcement officers. We should learn more, a lot more, about the special counsel investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election in the next 24 hours. We'll also be hearing about the Republican probe of alleged bias at the Department of Justice. Here's Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge on the prospects for a very big day tomorrow.
On Friday, the special counsel probe and House Republican FBI investigation come to a head. Robert Mueller's team will submit memos documenting their allegations that former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort violated his plea agreement. Manafort's legal team argues the special counsel used strong-arm tactics to obtain information their client does not have or evidence that does not exist.
It's a terrible situation for Manafort himself. It's not a great one for the prosecutors either, because they really can't use him as a witness in any case against anybody.
Earlier this week, the special counsel filed the sentencing memo for former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn with heavy redactions. A similar effort to shield sensitive information is expected in the Manafort filing, and a separate sentencing memo for Michael Cohen, the president's former personal attorney. Court records show Cohen, who cut a deal last week over lying to Congress about a 2016 Trump-Moscow real estate project, has participated in 7 voluntary interview meetings with the special counsel's office. Legal observers predict the next few weeks will be telling.
If there aren't any new indictments, that would tell you that he's really preparing a report to deliver to the Congress about what his investigation has uncovered relative to the president and the campaign.
After withdrawing legal efforts to quash a congressional subpoena, former FBI Director James Comey is on Capitol Hill Friday for a rare closed-door interview under oath with the House Judiciary Committee. After controversial text messages from FBI agent Peter Strzok and FBI lawyer Lisa Page, Republicans predict hard questions on political bias in the Clinton email and Russia investigations.
There is a whole host of things that Mr. Comey knows, and he's made statements on. Some of them haven't been consistent.
With a special counsel prosecuting Trump associates for lying, Republicans want Comey to explain why he apparently did not pursue similar allegations against Hillary Clinton over her congressional testimony about her email use. The Comey transcript could be released as early as Saturday. The former FBI director said the move is the closest he can get to a public hearing, Brett.
Catherine, there's also new information tonight about the evidence in the Clinton Foundation investigation.
Next week, Congressman Mark Meadows, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, is holding a subcommittee hearing on the investigation into the Clinton Foundation. As you recall, a year ago, the U.S. Attorney in Utah, John Huber, was tasked by then Attorney General Jeff Sessions with the Clinton Foundation, among other issues. Tonight, Meadows confirms to Fox News 3 whistleblowers have come forward with hundreds of pages of evidence of potential wrongdoing, to include the misappropriation of funds and quid pro quo. The Clinton Foundation has consistently maintained that it is a charity and never traded on Hillary Clinton's position as Secretary of State. Brett.
We will follow all of these threads. Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
A private burial service for President George H.W. Bush just wrapped up in College Station, Texas. This follows one last farewell, a funeral service in President Bush's adopted hometown of Houston, and a last train ride between the two locations with amazing images. Correspondent Alicia Cunha wraps up today's memorials from College Station.
A Texas-sized farewell for George Herbert Walker Bush. More than 1,000 family and friends of the 41st president gathering at St. Martin's Episcopal Church in Houston, remembering and honoring the late leader through scripture read by his grandchildren.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
And song by country singers the Oak Ridge Boys.
Amazing grace.
And Reba McEntire.
And forgive us our debts.
As well as remembrances by former Secretary of State and longtime friend James Baker. Baker praising Bush's love of country.
George Bush was a charter member of the greatest generation. His wish for a kinder, gentler nation was not a cynical political slogan. It came honest and unguarded from his soul.
Recalling his sense of humor.
He would look at me and he'd say, "Baker, if you're so smart, why am I president and you're not?"
And his gift of friendship.
Our glory, George, was to have had you as our president and as such a friend.
His oldest grandson, George Prescott Bush, recalling fond memories of his beloved Gampy.
Always the competitor, each night Gampy challenged all of the grandkids to the coveted First to Sleep award.
And how he always made time to help others.
He left a simple yet profound legacy to his children, to his grandchildren, and to this country. Service.
After the funeral, the last leg of the former president's journey was made by rail, only the 8th presidential funeral train and the first since Dwight Eisenhower. The custom-made Union Pacific locomotive is numbered 4141 for the 41st president and painted the same sky blue as Air Force One. The train slowing down for thousands who came to pay their final respects as it carried Bush's body some 70 miles to College Station and his final resting spot at his presidential library, where he was privately buried next to his beloved wife Barbara and daughter Robin. And for as public as the Bush family is, and the farewells this week were shared by all per their request, the final goodbye was private. Theirs alone. Brett.
Alicia, thank you. Up next, new concerns over whether North Korea is telling the truth about cutting its nuclear weapons and long-range missile programs as you look live one last time. College Station, Texas, the final resting place of President George H.W. Bush. Rest in peace.
This is my body proof.
Proof of less joint pain.
And clearer skin.
Proof that I can fight psoriatic arthritis.
With Humira.
Humira targets and blocks a specific source of inflammation that contributes to both joint and skin symptoms. It's proven to help relieve pain, stop further irreversible joint damage, and clear skin in many adults. Humira is the #1 prescribed biologic for psoriatic arthritis.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Ask your rheumatologist about Humira.
Go to mypsaproof.com to see proof in action.
You might take something for your heart or joints, but do you take something for your brain? With an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish, Prevagen has been shown in clinical trials to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Applebee's Bigger, Bolder Grill combos are back. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Sandals. At last, an all-inclusive that truly includes it all. Sandals, the world's only 5-star luxury included resorts. Save up to 65%. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Mary Lou Retton, gold medal gymnast for Australian Dream.
I can't believe it's been over 30 years since I won the gold. All my training paid off, but today I feel the effects of all the time in the gym. That's why I use Australian Dream for my minor arthritis pain and muscle aches. It really works for me. In fact, I give it a perfect 10.
Australian Dream provides temporary relief from joint pain and muscle aches, and it's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. Buy Australian Dream in stores or online today.
Millions of fans have made this show their rock holiday tradition. Trans-Siberian Orchestra, live in concert, presented by Hallmark Channel. Coming to a city near you. Go to tsotickets.com for info. Don't miss Trans-Siberian Orchestra's Ghosts of Christmas Eve.
Promote what makes your business great with Vistaprint. Whether it's a business card, a banner, or a postcard, we have the paper stocks, sizes, and design options to create marketing that's right for your business. Give it a try with 500 standard business cards starting at just $9.99 when you use code VP500 at Vistaprint.com.
One of two Marine aviators recovered after the crash of a fighter jet and a refueling tanker near Japan has died. The other is in fair condition tonight. Search efforts continue to locate the other 5 missing personnel. The Marines say the 2 planes collided during routine training off the Japanese coast. There are new concerns tonight that North Korea is not limiting its nuclear program, but is in fact expanding a major missile base. This comes as the president's top diplomat meets with his North Korean counterpart. More on that tonight from State Department correspondent Rich Edson.
North Korea is expanding a missile base deep in its mountainous interior near its border with China. Quote, because of that location, the base is a strong candidate to receive North Korea's newer missiles, including those that can strike the United States. That's the assessment of the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, a California-based graduate school, and Planet Labs. Researchers evaluating new satellite images say they show North Korea continues work on the Yangjae-dong missile base and a suspected new facility nearby. They say Kim Jong-un continues producing and deploying nuclear-armed missiles, just as he ordered in January before meeting in June with President Trump in Singapore. The State Department refuses to comment on the report, as there are concerns U.S. efforts to disarm North Korea are stuck.
President Trump's trying to give the North Koreans a chance to live up to the commitments they made at the Singapore summit. He's held the door open for them. They need to walk through it.
This morning, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with South Korea's foreign minister, where the State Department says they again discussed North Korea's nuclear arsenal. The administration points to the ongoing discussions with the North Korean government and suspended nuclear and missile tests as progress, though offers little evidence North Korea is actually dismantling its weapons.
The bottom line is, if they want out from underneath the UN Security Council resolution sanctions, they're going to have to make progress.
The next step appears to be another meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un to try to agree to some specifics on how exactly North Korea would dismantle its nuclear weapons program. The president says he'll likely meet with Chairman Kim next month or the month after. Brett?
Rich Edson at the State Department. Rich, thanks. Up next, why Elizabeth Warren's path to the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020 seems to be getting a little bumpier. We'll explain. First, beyond our borders tonight, Ecuador's president is ramping up pressure on WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to leave his country's embassy in London. Lenin Moreno says Britain has provided sufficient guarantees that Assange will not be extradited to face the death penalty abroad. Assange has been at the embassy since 2012 after being charged with sex crimes in Sweden. New protest marches took place this evening in Greece on the 10th anniversary of the fatal police shooting of a teenager. Hours earlier, masked youths attacked police with firebombs and stones. The teen was killed on December 6, 2008 by a policeman following an altercation. That death led to a 2-week outburst of the worst violence Greece had seen in decades. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley was unable to get a condemnation of Hamas approved by the General Assembly today. Haley's action was thwarted by a procedural move from Bolivia and the Arab states. The outgoing ambassador sought to have Hamas condemned by the UN for the first time over its terror activities against Israel. Just some of the other stories beyond our borders tonight. We'll be right back.
My name is Daniel Miller. I work for the American government.
You're a spy.
The Russians are making a move.
Take out the peacemakers. Strike a match. Iron Curtain falls again.
This place is a time bomb. The fuse is lit.
Big wars start in small places.
Berlin Station, December, only on Epix.
You're headed down the highway when the guy in front slams on his brakes out of nowhere. You do too, but not in time. Hey, no big deal. You got a good record, and Liberty Mutual won't hold a grudge by raising your rates over one mistake. You hear that, Karen? Liberty Mutual doesn't hold grudges. How mature of them.
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise their rates because of their first accident. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Every time I smiled, I had to cover my mouth because I was so ashamed. When the denture slipped, I would have to excuse myself and go to the restroom virtually in tears. It kept me from being able to speak properly. I could not eat corn, apples, baby back ribs. I did not want dentures to be part of my life. I pretty much decided dental implants were the route I was going to take.
Let's do a head-to-head comparison of dental implants versus dentures. With dentures, the ability to taste food, to bite and chew is altered. The worst thing about dentures, bone loss. When you put an implant inside the bone, which is like the root of a tooth, now you preserve the bone. It's a game changer. With implants, you walk into a restaurant, you order anything you want. You eat just like you have real teeth.
Before you knew it, here I was with my brand new teeth.
Schedule your free consultation today. We'll even talk about financing options.
I can smile, my confidence is back.
Call Clear Choice today.
I walked across an empty line. I knew the pathway like the back of my hand. And if you have a minute, why don't we go? So why don't we go somewhere only we know? Somewhere only we know.
This is an invitation to experience a place between dreams and reality, to dive into life. Are you ready? Atlantis, Bahamas at heart.
Book your winter vacation by December 10th at 1-800-ATLANTIS or AtlantisBahamas.com.
Smart News.
Most of the time, my husband's wrong. But when he's right, it's thanks to Smart News.
So we both love Smart News.
It has news from all sides.
Plus, Smart News is 100% free.
He's right.
Finally, download Smart News for free now.
Worried you're one of the millions whose identity may have been compromised in the last breach?
Monitoring your credit may not be enough. LifeLock now includes the power of Norton to watch out for a range of threats to your identity and the information stored on your devices.
Sign up and LifeLock will monitor your personal information, alert you to suspicious activity, and if there's a problem, work to fix it with LifeLock's $1 Million Protection Package. It's not too late to get protection.
Get new LifeLock with Norton now.
Undocumented workers, illegal aliens, reportedly are employed at President Trump's New Jersey golf course. That's according to the New York Times. It quotes one of the workers as saying she has been a housekeeper at the Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey for more than 5 years. She alleges there are other illegal immigrants working there as well. The Trump organization has just responded minutes ago saying, quote, "We have tens of thousands of employees across our properties and have very strict hiring practices. If any employees submitted false documentation in an attempt to circumvent the law, they will be terminated immediately." One of the Democrats expected to launch a serious campaign for the party's presidential nomination in 2020 is facing new questions tonight. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts is said to be having a hard time with reaction to her latest effort at fighting back criticism of her claims about Native American ancestry. Correspondent Peter Ducey makes sense of all of that and her prospects tonight.
This is Elizabeth Warren.
Senator Elizabeth Warren made a big splash when she revealed she had a sliver of Native American in her family tree.
What do the facts say?
The facts suggest that you absolutely have a Native American ancestor in your pedigree.
But that pedigree only includes between 164th and 1024th Native American. And now, the New York Times reports that, quote, advisors close to Ms. Warren say she has privately expressed concern that she may have damaged her relationships to Native American groups and her own standing with activists, particularly those who are racial minorities. Warren insisted today she has no regrets.
I have put it all out, in public. I put out 10 years of tax returns, my hiring records, and DNA tests all out there on the internet for anybody to see.
But progressives aren't the only ones crying foul. The Cherokee Nation condemned the possible presidential candidate in October, explaining, quote, using a DNA test to lay claim to any connection to the Cherokee Nation or any tribal nation, even vaguely, is inappropriate and wrong. And President Trump piled on.
I used to go around saying, I have more Indian blood than you do, and I have none. And I was right.
Warren has been hiring staff and making speeches and taking meetings, including with Barack Obama, that seem to be positioning her for a presidential campaign.
The world changed in 2016. It changed again in 2018. I believe it's going to change again in 2020.
And 2020 is still on the table despite this possible setback.
It's important to be transparent. I think that's how public officials should be. We've had a lot of good, thoughtful conversations about it, and that's how we learn.
Warren's hometown paper is selling its stock in a 2020 run. The Boston Globe just posted an editorial describing Warren as a divisive figure, and that's a problem for the Globe, which thinks that only a unifying figure can match up with and beat President Trump. Brett?
Peter Ducey live on the Hill. Peter, thanks. The North Carolina Republican Party says it would be open to a new congressional election if an investigation were to find a high likelihood that wrongdoing swayed that race. The state elections board is trying to determine if absentee ballot irregularities could have changed the outcome of the 9th District congressional contest. Unofficial ballot totals have Republican Mark Harris leading Democrat Dan McCready by 905 votes. But the state elections board refused to certify the results last week because of questions involving mail-in ballots. Just moments ago, McCready withdrew his concession. A political power struggle tonight in Wisconsin as Republican lawmakers try to ease the sting of losing the governor's seat there by restricting power of the incoming Democratic chief executive. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin looks at how they're trying to do that and if it will work.
Liberal protesters were back in Wisconsin's state capitol, furious that the Republican majority used the lame duck session to pass laws diminishing the power of incoming governor-elect Democrat Tony Evers, who narrowly ousted conservative hero Scott Walker.
As soon as the election was over, and they decided they didn't like who was coming into office, and so they wrote some bills to restrict his power.
A month after Wisconsin Republicans lost all statewide races, they maintain a majority in both houses. So they passed bills giving the legislature control over an economic development agency, and many bills limiting the governor's power, including the ability to issue regulations. The incoming Democrat says his first move is to appeal to Walker.
We're looking forward to making sure that the people of Wisconsin connect with the governor, the present governor, and encourage him to veto this bill.
Wisconsin Republicans also targeted the Attorney General with legislation removing his ability to withdraw from lawsuits, which means the incoming Democrat cannot back out of a challenge to Obamacare, a key issue in the campaign.
The legislature is trying to put its judgment in place of the judgment of the voters of Wisconsin.
Republican lawmakers say the flurry of bills simply guarantees that both the legislative and executive branches will have an equal seat at the table.
I do not believe that a single stroke of the pen by a governor of either party should be able to undo the work of the legislature in negotiation with the executive branch.
In Michigan, demonstrators have been out in force after the Republican-controlled legislature used the lame duck session to pass bills slowing a minimum wage increase and weakening an initiative for paid sick leave. The state Senate passed a bill stripping the incoming Secretary of State's oversight of campaign finance laws. Michigan's outgoing Republican Governor Rick Snyder is waiting to review the bills. In Wisconsin, Governor Walker also will not say if he will sign. Governor-elect Evers says if Walker refuses to veto, the courts are an option. Brett.
Mike Tobin in our Midwest Bureau. Mike, thanks. A possible new Attorney General nominee, plus how the arrest of a Chinese tech executive, concerns about U.S.-China trade, and continued problems in the tech world are driving down the markets. We'll talk about all of that with the panel when we come back.
Welcome to Mitsubishi. Interested in a test drive?
Yeah. Introducing the 2019 Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. If you like sculpted lines, you'll love its dynamic design. Now showing at a dealership near you.
Test drive a new crossover at your local Mitsubishi dealer.
New Alka-Seltzer Plus Power Max Gels. Concentrated power, 25% smaller pill. Max your cold relief with Alka-Seltzer Plus.
Children shouldn't have to battle cancer, but they do.
My name is Abby, and I have Ewing sarcoma. St. Jude is trying to make it go away.
My name is Randall, and I have leukemia. I just finished my high dose of chemo.
You can join the battle to save lives by supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Our son was diagnosed with a medullary brain tumor. I remember hoping that he would make it to his first birthday.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because all a family should worry about is helping their child live. Please call or go online right now and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope for only $19 a month.
You don't realize the magnitude of how much you've really helped somebody. You know, I just want to say thank you.
1 in 5 children diagnosed with cancer will not survive.
I didn't want any other parents to have to go through this. I don't know where we would be without this hospital.
When you join with your credit or debit card right now, we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt you can wear to show your support for the children of St. Jude.
St. Jude gives you all of that hope back. They gave me my daughter back.
St. Jude won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
These children fight hard. They fight for their life. And I don't think we could do it without you.
Please, call or go online right now.
If you're looking for the perfect holiday gift for someone special to you, give a gift that will be truly appreciated. The Omaha Steaks Favorite Gift Package. It's filled with $232 worth of great food for just $59.99. That's 74% off only on this special holiday offer. The people on your nice list will receive 4 tender, mouth-watering filet mignons, 4 extra thick boneless pork chops, 4 premium boneless chicken breasts, 4 classic juicy Omaha Steaks burgers, 4 stuffed baked potatoes, and 4 caramel apple tartlets. Your order will be delivered straight to your home or the destination of your choice, so you can give this wonderful gift to anybody on your holiday list. As a special holiday gift from us to you, if you order right now, we'll include 4 additional Omaha Steaks burgers free. That's 8 total. You get it all. Omaha Steaks Favorite Gift Package, a $232 value for just $59.99. Give everyone a gift they can appreciate. Give them the Favorite Gift Package from Omaha Steaks today.
It's all wide open space out here, but there's still no room for nonsense. And while the clock moves slower, no one here has time to waste. Small towns are different that way. Folks don't want to buy what you're selling. They want to believe what you're saying. So tell the truth, bring your best, and show them you're here to stay.
Dish was built by serving small towns all across America. It's why we'll show up when promised, stay till you're satisfied, and deliver the strongest connection. Dish, tuned in to you.
The president certainly is entitled to his choice as FBI director. And while I admire Jim Comey a lot, I think he's contributed a lot to the country. He's enormously gifted. He crossed a basic line back in July, a fundamental line in the department, which is that investigations are supervised and directed by the lawyers, the prosecutors at the department, not the agents.
William Barr, said to be the leading contender to be the next nominee for Attorney General, take over for Jeff Sessions. Obviously now acting is Mr. Whitaker, but William Barr was Attorney General before, under the 41st President of the United States. He said not only that comment you heard there about Comey, but has written numerous things, including about the Mueller prosecutors. Prosecutors who make political contributions are identifying fairly strongly with a political party. I would have liked to see Mueller have more balance in this group, obviously talking about the Democratic Party. Those 2 statements alone, very positive, one would think, from the president's point of view. But what about this choice? Well respected from Republicans and Democrats up on Capitol Hill. And we don't know if it's a fact, but it looks like it's heading that way. Let's bring in our panel. David Brody, Chief Political Analyst for the Christian Broadcasting Network, National Security Analyst Morgan Ortegas, and Josh Kraushaar, Political Editor for the National Journal. Josh, surprised by this name?
It's a little surprising, but I think it's apropos that the week that we're honoring and commemorating George H.W. Bush, we have his former Attorney General looking like he may be the next successor to Jeff Sessions. It's a reminder that President Trump may talk a tough game about the Mueller investigation, but his instincts and his administration's instincts is to go in an establishment direction, and Barr is a very establishment pick. He's someone who is not like Jeff Sessions. He's a corporate attorney, and he's someone who has defended the president on numerous occasions, but he doesn't seem to be a Trump loyalist. So,
you say he's a corporate attorney. He's a partner at Kirkland Ellis, big law firm here in town, alongside the current White House counsel, Mr. Cipollone, who just started this past week. Morgan, it's interesting that all this dust up on Capitol Hill about Matt Whitaker, and now you're getting this other name that pretty well respected on the left and the right.
I think it's a smart move politically if this is who the president goes with. Even with a bigger majority in the Senate, what all of this comes down to is who can the president get confirmed. And so you're going to need to see someone that can go through without a big political fight. We're already going to have to name a replacement to Nikki Haley as well. So there's going to be several big confirmations that need to get through. I think the most important thing that the administration has to do is to name someone and to move past Whitaker, because that's just been a lightning rod of criticism. And when the Democrats take over the House, I think you're going to see more investigations into him. So move on to someone well respected like this that can defend this administration.
David.
Yeah, I think we also might see the hypocrisy at work here with the Democrats. They just got done lauding this week President 41, George H.W. Bush, and all of a sudden here comes Bill Barr, a guy who worked in his administration. And oh, by the way, now how are you going to handle that come potential confirmation time? You just said all these nice things about a president that was calm and had civility. And if he made the right choice, well, why isn't President Trump making that same right choice?
Well, exactly right. All right, let's turn now to this dust up about U.S.-China trade and an arrest in Canada.
China demands them to immediately clarify the reason for the arrest, release the detainee, and safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of the detainee.
If someone has violated the law, you cannot say we're not going to charge them or hold them accountable in our justice system because of some geopolitical matter.
Not respecting this particular arrest, but Huawei is one company we've been concerned about. There are others as well. I think this is going to be a major subject of the negotiations that President Trump and President Xi Jinping agreed on in Buenos Aires.
That arrest, the chief executive of Huawei, this tech company, and it has caused a major issue for China. We're told that there could be a bail set tomorrow for Ms. Meng. Morgan, what about this?
Well, I think that this sends a very loud and clear message to business executives around the world that you cannot evade U.S. sanctions on Iran. Even though this arrest happened during the middle of this trade discussions, this was primarily based on evading Iran sanctions, on not complying with them. So I think any European companies that are looking at this arrest, that were thinking about doing business in Iran, are going to think twice.
Yeah, you look at the Dow today and the wild ride that it's been on as of late. This is just today, and you see Tuesday's close there made a comeback, Josh. But this dynamic about where U.S. trade is, what is happening after Buenos Aires. I talked to Peter Navarro at the White House the other day. It is a major issue for the markets.
It's a reminder that Trump picking a trade fight with China could be a big-time political loser because, the markets are not reacting very positively. And look, I think the Trump game plan was to play hardball and hope that China would make concessions. That's certainly what the administration hoped for in the aftermath of Buenos Aires. But China isn't playing ball, and if a lot of American voters feel an economic squeeze, it's going to land right on the president's desk.
Yeah, I guess their thinking, according to Navarro and others, is that just give it some time, calm down. China said what they said in this meeting, and they have to go through the process, but eventually we're going to get them to the table and start to level the playing field.
Well, that's right, and the clock is ticking. That 90-day clock that we know about, where those tariffs can go up from 10% to 25% of clicking. I think that works for the administration at this point. There's something to dangle over the Chinese, if you will. I mean, this is definitely as the Dow turns. I think this is a roller coaster December, I think, that we're about to see. And I also think we're seeing the art of the deal play out, not just in the boardroom behind the scenes, but it's playing out in the stock market. And I think the parallel between the two is interesting to watch.
Well, to that point, this is the Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesperson. Take a listen.
The teams of both sides are now having smooth communications and good cooperation with each other. We are full of confidence that an agreement can be reached within the next 90 days.
Well, maybe.
You know, for the past 30 years, U.S. foreign policy in Republican and Democrat administrations is predicated on the fact that if we open up to China economically with American business, that China will open up politically. And what we've seen the past 2 years is that premise that we've all been working on for 30 years is not actually true. We have Xi for life. We have China closing in, becoming more insular. And American, European governments and businesses need to ask themselves, what does a Chinese-led world order look like? And do you want to be a part of that? And if not, no matter what you feel about this president, you need to back him up.
Quickly. I was going to say Trump pitched this as being the art of the deal master. I mean, he needs to get a deal. I don't think he can have conflict forever.
Yeah. All right, panel, stand by. Next up, we'll look at, it's hard to believe, 2020 presidential hopefuls on the Democratic side.
Before Nexium 24-Hour, Mark could only imagine a peaceful night's sleep without frequent heartburn waking him up. Now, that dream is a reality. Nexium 24-Hour stops acid before it starts for all-day, all-night protection. Can you imagine 24 hours without heartburn?
I was pretty content. Not really thinking about dating.
But my daughter said, why not just use Out There? So I took a look on Our Time.
I quickly saw great people my age.
I've got to admit, it sure is fun looking.
And people are looking back.
Our Time. Just take a look for free today.
For small businesses, payroll is complex and time-consuming, and mistakes can mean tax trouble. Sure Payroll makes it easy to pay employees and file federal, state, and local taxes with accuracy guaranteed, all done online in minutes, and with award-winning support, even on weekends and evenings. More time for you, less time on payroll and taxes. For 1 month of free payroll, visit SurePayroll.com now or call 844-SURE-PAYROLL, SurePayroll.com.
Don't you wish you could still get that excited about something?
Yes! I love Wayfair!
For that Christmas morning feeling, you've got Wayfair. Shop everything home at Wayfair.com.
I'm young. I'm not supposed to have high blood pressure.
If you just learned you have high blood pressure, or you're already treating it with medication, you can benefit from adding the Zona Plus to your treatment plan.
Medication is not the answer all the time for treatment of blood pressure.
The Zona Plus therapy is safe and easy to do, at home or on the go. Each daily treatment takes only 12 minutes. Do it while you're watching TV, during breakfast, relaxing, even before a workout.
I started using the Zona, and within the first 2 weeks, I was noticing a big difference. It was very exciting.
I've been using it now for about 1.5 years, and I absolutely love it.
The Zona Plus is a drug-free, software-controlled, handheld device that's clinically proven to help lower blood pressure. If you are not a fan of prescriptions, the idea of using a non-invasive medical device seems like a great alternative. The science behind the Zona Plus is based on an isometric technology, which was initially developed by a respected cardiopulmonary physiologist. The same technology evolved into the patented Zona Plus therapy.
Every once in a while, I remind him, "Are you doing your Zona?" And he'll say, "Yep."
Every day. Neither of us take any medication for blood pressure anymore. No. It's all done.
In studies, 90% of people lowered their blood pressure from 10 to 15 points in as few as 4 to 8 weeks.
I'm the type of person that needs to be in control of my life. And the Zona Plus gives me that opportunity to be in control of my blood pressure. And that is such an empowering feeling.
And with the company's fantastic 90-day money-back guarantee, backed by a full refund of the purchase price, there's no risk. You have everything to gain by giving Zona Plus a try for 90 days. Call now at 800-830-2039 or visit us online at zonaplus.com.
Are you considering a run for the presidency in 2020?
Yes.
You are?
I'll consider that. I'm focused right now on my re-election, but is this something I'll consider? Absolutely.
I put out 10 years of tax returns, my hiring records, and DNA tests all out there on the internet for anybody to see.
All right, and do you think that this is going to impact a 2020 run?
Look, it's all out there for anyone to see.
I will give it strong consideration about whether that is something that I should do.
Well, I don't know about this talk. The talk may have come from me. I've said I would look at it after the first of the year. And we'll see then.
And I'll keep you posted. I won't be shy about telling you when I've made a decision.
A lot of strong consideration, a lot of thinking and decision-making over the holidays. We look at the board of possibilities, and you can't really fit them all on one screen. We tried there, but there are more, believe it or not. Democratic presidential hopefuls, wannabes, back with the panel. David, your thoughts, early thoughts about how this is shaping up?
Right. So much to unpack here. Look, I think Beto O'Rourke could potentially be, as we sit here right now, in the driver's seat. Why? Because he packages it all very, very well.
And the Senate candidate lost to Ted Cruz in Texas, and obviously a prolific fundraiser.
Yeah, and it's half the battle. I mean, packaging it is half the battle, as Barack Obama kind of did that in 2008. And look, Donald Trump is very good at branding, as we know. Ask Lion Ted and Little Marco, right? But along comes Pocahontas and Spartacus, and so here we go again. So he seems to have, once again, eliminated Elizabeth Warren even before she got to the starting gate, to a degree.
Speaking of that, the New York Times had kind of a blistering story today about this whole, which is what produced these questions to Elizabeth Warren, about the whole DNA test thing. Advisors close to Miss Warren say she has privately expressed concern that she may have damaged her relationships to Native American groups and her own standing with activists, particularly those who are racial minorities. Several outside advisors are even more worried. They say they believe a plan should be made to repair that damage, possibly including a strong statement of apology. More worrisome to supporters of Ms. Warren's presidential ambitions, she has yet to allay criticism from grassroots progressive groups, liberal political operatives, and other potential 2020 allies who complain that she put too much emphasis on the controversial field of racial science, and in doing so played into Mr. Trump's hands. Morgan, there's another piece that said Cory Booker has 7 times more Native American, or 70 times more Native American in his DNA strand as Elizabeth Warren.
Well, let's call a spade here. You have a white woman who pretended for a large part of her career to be a minority in order to benefit her career. And if that's not offensive to Democrat primary voters, I don't know what is. If I was Kamala Harris in every primary, I would look at her and say, tell me what it's like to be a woman of color. Because clearly Kamala Harris is I mean, if anything, she's had to overcome many struggles in her life. Another thing that Kamala Harris is really my dark horse, and another reason is because the Democrat primary in California was moved from June to March 3rd. Very early in the game, that's going to benefit her. And I just think anybody of the older generation, not to speak ill of any of them, but Biden and Warren and Sanders and that whole crew, I think they're just going to struggle because the energy in the Democrat Party is with the younger people, especially those of color.
And there's a Wall Street Journal poll looking at Iowa that said just that, Josh. But then you have other people like Tom Steyer. You have Mike Bloomberg, who we just saw there. Others, John Delaney is already campaigning in Iowa and New Hampshire.
Well, look, this Democratic nomination is going to be as much about authenticity as it is about ideology, and that's Elizabeth Warren's big problem. I mean, she's liberal enough, but she, you know, this whole DNA test where she claims she's a tiny bit Native American, it didn't flag with progressives. It certainly doesn't fly with Republicans. That's why Beto O'Rourke is raising so much money. That's why he's being talked